Hello to the members and friends of Davidson College Presbyterian Church. Thank you for joining me, Peter Henry, the pastor, and Irvin Duggan, chair of our stewardship committee, as we have a little conversation about our fall stewardship season. And for that season, Irvin, you set the tone right away when you came to me and you said, I want to base our fall financial stewardship season on that classic hymn, Now Thank We All Our God. Why that hymn?
It's a hymn, Peter, of faith and gratitude in bad times. The pastor who wrote it was living in the 30 Years' War. He was conducting 30 funerals a day of plague victims and war refugees. He lost his own wife to the plague, and yet he was able to write a classic hymn of faith and gratitude in the midst of bad times. So I thought it was appropriate for this time.
And in that expression of faith, the writer talks about countless gifts of love. When you think about the countless gifts of love of the church, what are some of those gifts?
I think there are countless gifts of love within the life of this congregation and in our outreach beyond our congregation. If you think of the way we support each other and care for each other in this congregation, bereavement groups, comfort for people in divorce or transition, education of young children. We are loving each other and caring for each other within the congregation. And then with the strength that gives us, we reach out and help the world.
Yeah, and you talked about programs and the things that that we kind of provide for in terms of outside programs. But I also know as a pastor, one of the things I sometimes tell people is our buildings and our staff are part of those ministries too. And whether that's when we welcome groups like AA, where the leader told me, Peter, literally AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has saved lives. So we provide that space. Or it's a space where children and youth come and know they're loved so that they can go out and face the world. And I also think about not just our building, but our staff are part of those ministries. When you think about the equipping that we do, the receiving that we do, I mean, all of that are part of those countless gifts that you talked about. And when we think about the church, we have outside groups we support and a variety of services that we provide. But how are we different from the United Way? How are we different from other community organizations?
I think it has to do with depth. United Way, secular charities do a terrific work. They are focused on transforming communities. The church is focused on transforming us, asking that deepest question of the meaning of life. And it's only after we undergo that transformation of ourselves and our souls that we are equipped to go out and do the good work of outreach. So I think there's a great difference, though both do good in the world.
Yeah, and when we think about going out into the world, I mean, it's a world that's pretty polarized and divided, and the church is one of the last remaining places where we gather people who cross geographic lines, socioeconomic lines, racial lines, political lines. So that's a pretty important ministry of gathering so that we can go out as transformed people and transform the world for sure.
Yeah. And I think of the church as a way that we model what life should be for the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah. When we think about that modeling, I do know that from year to year we sometimes struggle to do more than what we've always done. And I don't know if you remember the statistic I told you before we got started today about what limits?
44%?
Yeah. 44% of our households do not give to the ministries of the church, which means that we mostly just do what we've always done. But if we were to have people step up and grow in their giving and discipleship, I know our faith formation folks would love to better equip all of our groups to use technology. We struggle every Sunday morning to get it all done. And 21st century, it has to be here and there. So tech needs. I know youth ministry would love to add more staff hours to meet our growing youth ministry needs. I know that Global Missions would love to have more stable scholarship funding for the academy that we've helped build. And I also know that Stephen ministers feel like in order to care for one another through that program, we need more consistent training for our leaders. But we can't really do those things if we're only doing what we've always done financially.
And we're constantly moving with inflation threatening to move faster than we do. And if we don't account for inflation in our giving, we're standing still. So I think another theme for this campaign should be growth. Not only the personal growth that we undergo as members of this church, but growth in our generosity and our giving so that we can do more good. So I hope that if there are members of this church who are not giving, they will think about giving for the first time, growing in that way. And those of us who are giving need to think prayerfully about stepping up to keep up with inflation and increase our ability, grow our ability to do good in the world.
Yeah. And I love that word growth, Irvin, because growth to me does speak to the financial piece and having not kept up with inflation with our average giving. But it also is a reminder that our giving is part of our discipleship. And one of our callings is to grow as disciples of Jesus Christ, to be transformed. And one of the ways is through our giving as an expression of faith. And so like Irvin, I hope to see your pledge card come through before in worship so that together we might be part of countless gifts of love to one another and to our community. Thank you for spending time with us today in our conversation.